Francis has openly criticized some conservative American Catholics for what he suggested was a backward and narrow view of the church. The Pope added that some American conservatives insisted on a narrow, outdated vision that fixated on social issues like abortion and sexuality without focusing on caring for the poor and the environment. He made these remarks during a private meeting in Lisbon last month. Let's bring in Father James Martin. He's an American Jesuit priest and editor-at-large of the Jesuit magazine America. He's the author of the new book that is out today entitled Come Forth, The Promise of Jesus' Greatest Miracle.
Father Martin, I want to talk about your book, but I want to tread a little lightly, and I'm going to tread a little lightly as a Southern Baptist and an evangelical. I've got no problem talking about my church. I know where my church has been. I know where it is right now. I understand a lot of the Christian nationalism that's overtaken it. I have been well, I've just been at a loss exactly what American Catholicism. I went to Pensacola Catholic High School. It seemed to be a different Catholic church. I mean, at times I would make fun of how it was almost, sort of like, everybody whip out the acoustic guitars and do the kumbaya thing. And in some ways, it was a little too left of center for me at the time. But what I've seen has been with a lot of my Catholic friends, a lot of people I know that go to Catholic churches, just this radical shift to the far, far right, and the very things that they taught us about at Catholic high school, Matthew 25. I mean, the things that Jesus talked about in the Bible, caring for the poor, being compassionate, being forgiving of others, all the things I was taught. Now, sometimes when I talk to my Catholic friends, all they want to talk about is abortion and gay marriage. Like this politicized view of the Bible on two issues that Jesus never talked about. Talk about that development in the Catholic Church. It's a lot. I don't get it. Then I promise we'll talk about the book, which is incredibly important.
Well, thanks. It is a surprise to a lot of people. It's a surprise to Pope Francis. He was responding to a question that he was asked about that very, I would say, strong conservative, even reactionary part of the Catholic Church that really is opposing a lot of Pope Francis's way of proceeding. I think they were caught unawares by this Pope who was very focused on the poor, on social justice, on mercy. And as you say, there are some Catholics who are more focused on particular issues which are important, but which the Pope is reminding us there are other important issues as well. And he is a very much a Matthew 25 person, looking at how we treat the least of our brothers and sisters.
Well, I mean, if you look at the red letters, I mean, where Jesus' own words, what the Pope's talking about is what Jesus was talking about compassion, mercy, caring for the poor. Let's talk about your book. And here's the thing that I've always wondered about Lazarus, because you focus on Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. Why Lazarus? Why did he? There's so many times that we pray for deliverance for the people we love, and we don't get that miracle, but we do get a peace around certain things. Why did Jesus choose Lazarus to perform this miracle on?
That's a great question. Lazarus is described in the Gospels. The sisters of Lazarus, Martha and Mary, say to Jesus, "He whom you love is ill." And it's a really lovely designation, and it shows that Jesus was good friends with Lazarus and good friends with Martha and Mary. But the story really has universal appeal, because it's in the book I talk about how this story reminds us that God really calls all of us to new life, to kind of leave behind in the tomb, as it were, anything that keeps us from following God more closely. And so the story, while it's about Lazarus in particular, is really about all of us.
And so for people who read the story of Lazarus, Father, and they look for meaning for in their own life or contemporary meaning, you point to the fact that it's really a story about life. It begins with death, but it's really a story about life.
Yeah, and all of us have things that kind of keep us bound, keep us unfree, unfreedoms, addictions, bad patterns of behavior that we're really asked by God to let go of, to let really die in the tomb, as it were, and hear God call us to new life. So really the story is about new life for all of us.
Caddy?
Father, why did you write this book now? Why in this particular moment? Is there something about the world we're living in where you felt the story of Lazarus would be helpful to people?
I think the story of Lazarus, always has appeal. I wrote it, in particular because it's one of my favorite stories, and I've led pilgrimages to the Holy Land, and visiting the tomb is really powerful. But I think, particularly in light of COVID and some of the things going on today in the world where we feel kind of dead and we feel sort of hopeless, it really offers us a lot of hope and a lot of newness of life.
And what are some things that can inspire that renewal, that idea of turning a page, of finding a new chapter, of being reborn?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things for the believer is knowing who's calling us, right? That it's not just something that's a self-improvement project. It's not something that's just responding, say, like a therapist, as important as those things are. But it's God himself calling us into new life. So I think when we remember, who's calling us, just like Lazarus had to trust in the voice at the tomb calling him forth, we have a lot more confidence.
The new book out today is titled Come Forth, the promise of Jesus' greatest miracle. Father James Martin, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Father.
We appreciate it.